All right, I am evangelist Charles Toonie Cash, and I attended Milligan College here from 1967 to 1971. Came on a basketball scholarship and played for 4 years here, and been in evangelism now for 44 years. And Mr. Baptist asked me if I could come by and do an interview about being inducted into the Hall of Fame and some of the records and all that still remain that were set while I was here. I'm not here to boast about myself, but just to share some things that he's asked me to share. So it's a delight, and I feel honored to be here today. Well, I've always been somewhat of a homebody type individual, and I could have gone to many different schools to play ball, but I just like the surroundings of home, and that was one thing that was instrumental, I guess, in me staying local. Of course, I'm a local boy. I only live now about a half mile where I was born and raised, out on the other side of Boones Creek. And so I attended Boones Creek High School, which consolidated a few years later into Daniel Boone. But I was all-state basketball player there, honorable mention All-American. And Coach Stout at that time was instrumental in recruiting me to come to Milligan. I'd heard a lot about Milligan, and of course, as a young boy in high school at 15 years of age, as a freshman in high school, I felt the call of the Lord upon my life to preach the gospel. And so knowing that Milligan was a Christian school, that was another thing that kind of led to my choosing Milligan. And of course, the atmosphere of a small college, I think, is so different from a big university. I understand in a lot of the universities, the professor comes and Ian maybe doesn't even call the roll, teaches if you get it, fine, if you don't, fine, and if you've passed, fine, if you're not, fine. It wasn't that way here at Milligan. I had some wonderful teachers, and it seemed like they were most all so concerned about you doing well. And matter of fact, I had one professor, if you didn't make at least a C on his test, he wouldn't know what was wrong, Dr. Fife. And of course, I had some great teachers here, and Dr. Webb and Dr. Gwaltney and Dr. Crouch and Dr. Professor Onby, and just a lot of wonderful teachers. But that was some of the things that led to my coming to Milligan College. Well, when I think back to the days of basketball, of course, my freshman year when I scored 49 points and we upset Wofford College, which was a great team. ETSU had just beat them about 16 points, I think, early in the year. And we upset them here in the old Cheek Gymnasium that was torn down a few years after I graduated. And we only played in that gymnasium 1 year. We played the rest of our home games the last 3 years at Happy Valley. But I had 49 points against them, and we upset them 83-80 in the old Milligan gym. And then my third college game, I believe it was, I'd never scored as many points I'm about to say in a game, even when I played at Boones Creek. 36 was maybe the most there. Had 44 against Carson Newman, my third game, I believe it was here. And we almost upset them, and that was one of the better Carson Newman teams that we played while I was here. And then, of course, I think of my sophomore year, Baptist College out of Charleston ran a boxing one on me. In other words, I didn't hardly see the ball all night, but believe it or not, I had 6 points that game and hit the winning bucket. We beat them 1 point, hit the winning bucket. That stands out. Then the fact that I made a VSAC, a Volunteer State Athletic Conference, all 4 years that I was here. A couple of years in Nashville where we used to go to play in the tournament before they started having playoffs my last year. My junior and senior had 38 points both games, and one against Christian Brothers, one against Belmont. And that was one of the toughest losses, I guess, experience while we were here. We got beat by Belmont 91-90. I had 38, and Don Threlkill played with me, had 31. And that at that time in my sophomore year, that was the most had been scored in a tournament game there, and then scored the same amount the next year. And then my friend Rick Trivett played LMU, came along right after we finished that game, scored 41, broke that. But some of those things, and my sophomore year being chosen as honorable mention All-American, Some of those things stand out as maybe favorite memories, but in spite of all the records and all that were said and still stand that I was involved in, one of the most memorable things, I guess, about my career here was on the 13th of February in 1971. They proclaimed that day as Charles Toonie Cash Day. In honor, I'm reading as it was put, in honor of the athletes regarded as an inspiration to others and a spokesman for Jesus Christ, exemplifying high Christian principles and leadership. To me, that's the most important memory that I could have. In spite of all the other records and all set, I would just like to think that I left an influence, a testimony, a legacy that other young people could follow as a prime example. As the Apostle Paul put it in 1 Corinthians 10:31, whatsoever you do, eat or drink, say whatever, do it all into the glory of God. And so that's the thing that really is more memorable to me than all the other records together. Well, it's something that I think about. It's an honor, I guess you might say. But the amazing thing about that, Ricky, is that's been 45 years ago. And with the way that basketball has changed, the finesse of guys today, the quickness, the three-point shot, which we did not have, I'm amazed that after 45 years that a lot of records, and I'm looking at a little brochure we have here that lists some college accomplishments, and if you don't mind me, just read them. And again, I'm not doing this in a boastful way. I'm just answering one of your questions. All Volunteer State Athletic Conference, 4 years. Second in the nation, small college division, NAIE in free throw shooting, 90.1% my freshman year. That was 203 out of 223 free throws, over 200 points on the foul line. Honorable mention, NAIA All-American, my sophomore year. And then the Milligan records along with the one you just made reference to. All-time leading scorer, 2989. Most field goals in a career, 1,156. Most free throws in a career, 677. Most points in a single game, 49, my freshman year. Now, that was in the two-point era. There was a boy, and let me give him credit, his last name was Ashby, who scored 52 here in recent times, but had 9 three-pointers. And so if we'd have had three-point shot, the night I had 49, probably half, two-thirds of the shot I shot would have been three-point shots, but that's still some feat that he made. 52 points, a lot of points, whether it's two-point era, three-point era, but that's in the two-point era. Most points averaged per game for a 4-year career, 25.1. Highest point average per game for a single year, 26.9 my freshman year. And probably not even in this, probably the best free throw percentage over 4 years, probably around 87%. That's probably the highest for 4 years, and maybe even field goal, maybe. I'm not sure of those, but probably so. Over 4 years, probably near 50% field goal. So it's an honor. I guess it gives me a good feel when somebody will say when I'm out in a meeting somewhere, you're still the leading scorer, are you not, at Milligan College? And really, after 45 years, I'm amazed that not just 1, but 8 or 10 of these records are still standing. They may be broken one day, and that'll be fine. But records, they say, are made to be broken, but eventually. But it's amazing after all the years that these records are still standing. As I said earlier, I surrendered. I was called to preach, or felt the call to preach at 15 years of age as a freshman in high school. And right before, I guess, I started in the Milligan on August the 13th, 1967, I surrendered to preach, if that's what the Lord wanted me to do. Well, I broke into Milligan that fall, got married the 1st of June in 68. At the end of that year, month rather, I went to a little church here above Milligan, Green Pine Baptist Mission at that time. It later developed into a church while I was there. And I pastored 3 years. while I was in school here at Green Pine Baptist Church up above the old Green Pine school building from years back. And I hadn't been there just a few months, and a friend of mine, who's now my pastor at Boones Creek, Kenneth Kiker, invited me to a revival meeting over in Kingsport at Reservoir Road Baptist Church. And in that meeting, on the last, as the first revival I reckon I'd had, and on the last evening, as I left, going to my car from that meeting on Sunday night, the Lord couldn't have shown me in a plain for written across the sky, one day this shall be your work, evangelism. Of course, I was in school on a scholarship and finished out my schooling and all. And so when I graduated from here on May the 17th, 1971, and entered evangelism full-time in January of 1972, we incorporated the Charles Toonie Cash Evangelistic Association. It really started in the fall of that year, but I hadn't got everything organized. I had about 5 meetings in the fall of that year, and the Lord gave me the green light. It's time to launch on out. As a result of one of the meetings we had there in October, went 2.5 weeks, had a great meeting. But anyway, I entered evangelism in January after I graduated here in May. And so I've just finished, as the 15th of January last month, 44 years in full-time evangelism. Been to 18 different states. Love my work. The Lord's been good to an old country boy. But as to how Milligan helped me, one way, I learned some good study habits while I was here at Milligan. Had some good teachers. Spent a lot of time in the library. And had to work hard because I was just a country boy, and I had to kind of start over when I started into college. And so I'd learned some good study habits while here at Milligan. And if you're going to be a preacher of the gospel, we know whom we're preaching about, but we need to understand what we're preaching. And so it helped me have some study guides. And then not only that, as an evangelist, you just don't say, hey, I'm going into evangelism, and nobody know you. So God used my athletic career here, as well as at Boones Creek, to help me get known. And the first year I was in evangelism, I had 31 revivals, not counting all the other things I had. So in that respect, they helped me have some good study habits. And then the fact that through my athletic career that God blessed me enough to have here, it helped me to get known. So when I launched out in evangelism, it wasn't that people didn't know me. They knew who I was. And so that's a couple of ways, at least, that Milligan was a blessing to me and helping me in my work that I'm in now. Well, it always brings back a lot of precious memories. I can almost see myself walking through the campus, going to the library to sit and study maybe for hours. The administration building where we had several of our classes. Of course, the old gym was torn down, but the sub-building, that I think that we're in part of it maybe now. And then going to the cafeteria and eating. And just whether I'm driving through or coming for an event, it just brings back a lot of memories of 45 years ago when I was here, going through the campus, appreciating my friends, having fellowship with them, and the chapel services, and just so many things it brings back to memory. Sometime when I'm going up to the church to speak where I used to pastor, I'll drive through the Milligan campus just to drive through and see what it looks like and what's changed. But it's always a blessing, always a blessing. Well, I'm proud to be remembered as a buffalo. When I hear the name Milligan Buffaloes, it brings back memories. And I'm proud to be able to say, I went to Milligan College. I could recommend Milligan College. And being a buffalo is a good feeling to me, And I'm just proud that the Lord allowed me to come to Milligan. Well, they started this back in 1993. And I don't know if they still follow the same procedure or not, but they at that time were inducting about 6 new ones each year into the Hall of Fame. I came in October of 1996. And when I think back, Ricky, of the athletic programs of Milligan over the years, and the football program they used to have years ago, they don't have now, was before my time. But I've been told that they had some great football teams and some great football players. Then I think of when I was here, Coach Stout had some of the best baseball teams in the country. I mean, he played the big-time schools. And they still have good baseball. And then I think of wrestling. Coach Crowder. Oh, when I was here, Pete Beavers, Tony Ferrossi. Oh, we had some of the best wrestlers in the country. Went to state events, I think, And then, of course, in athletics, we over the years, had a lot of great basketball players. I think of Sonny Smith. A lot of folk don't realize Sonny Smith, who played here and coached at State and Auburn, and went here to Milligan, played at Cloudland. Then what's the other guy's name that was that coached in the NBA? Dale Harris played here. I surpassed his scoring record, I think, when I was a junior. He was leading scorer, 1,600 and some points. I surpassed, I believe, when I was a junior. And some folk don't realize that those fellows went here to Milligan. And so Milligan's had a great history of athletics and great athletes. And so for me to be inducted in the Hall of Fame amongst some of those, I told them the night I was inducted, I got to look at some of those names, Sonny Smith, Dale Harris, and so on. I said, I kind of feel like a mule at the Kentucky Derby. I'm not expecting to win, but I'm sure running with high-class horses, And so it's just an honor. It's an honor for me to be able to tell someone I was inducted into the Hall of Fame athletic program at Milligan. It's an honor. And I say that humbly. All of this I owe to the Lord. I'm nothing without Him, and I give Him all the praise. And like I said, in spite of of being inducted in the Hall of Fame, all the records that were set and still stand, that's secondary to the fact that I just hope I left the right kind of testimony and influence and legacy for other young people to follow.